Hey guys, Kane from Garage 11 and we're here today with this beautifully powder coated, straight, repaired CR500 frame. Now this isn't part of the CR500 episode that we've been working on previously. That frame is still away getting repaired. This is another restoration project we've got on. I thought it'd be a really cool idea today to show you restoring the triple clamp setup and installing the forks that we've had rebuilt and coated for this particular motorcycle. The triple clamps were in pretty bad state. There was steering stops missing, there was timber screws involved, all sorts of stuff. We've got all these clamps repaired, so we're going to run you through in this video our process and what we've done to get them into this bike and looking amazing. And then we will go through and we'll show you what it's going to look like with the forks and everything in it. So stay tuned, check it out guys, I'm sure you'll love it. If you've got any feedback for us, let us know, but stay tuned and we're going to get these forks and triple clamps in this bike. Thank you. Alright guys, so we're now going to press the head stem out of these bottom or this lower clamp. As you can see, we've supported the lower clamp on either side as close as we possibly can to the head stem. It's very important because the head stem is still cast or die cast aluminium, so it can be quite fragile. And after a lot of years, these head stems, aluminium, they grow together. It's definitely a thing. So it can take a little bit of pressure to get them out. So just make sure they're supported nicely. As you can see, there it goes. And we'll start slowly pushing this out. This is a good way and a really nice clean way to get the lower bearing off it as well. You do see some marks and some wild stuff on lower bearings from people trying to hit them off with a chisel, but this is the best, nicest way to get them out. As you can see, it just pops down, bearings off, stems out, and the clamp's ready to go, ready to start cleaning up. And once we did this lower clamp here, as you can see, there's a timber screw in it. And anyway, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pop this screw out. We're going to use a set of vice grips here just to try and grab onto it because it didn't have any head on it or anything. We were lucky that it hadn't welded itself or fused itself in there. So we've popped it out and now we can get on to repairing there you go. Look at it, big nasty coach looking screw. Anyway, now we can get on to repairing this steering stop, which is good. It's nice to repair this stuff and restore it because just getting another one, there's nothing wrong with this lower clamp. So repairing it gives someone else the chance to have one that might be unrepairable. So we'll definitely salvage this one. As you can see, we've just given it a quick hydroblast in that area. So what we're doing here now is we're just TIG welding back, trying to build up some usable material on that area. I'm not the greatest TIG welder in the world, but we can definitely start to build it up so we can shape it back because we're essentially just going to be shaping this to try and replicate the other side. So we've built it right up. We've really got a good amount of material there to start working with. So as you can see, we get the finishing wheel out with a slightly aggressive disc on it, and we're using the other side as a reference and we're just measuring, we're shaping, measuring, shaping until it aesthetically sits where it needs to and mathematically if we can as well. Obviously I'm not a CNC machine, so there's always going to be a variation there. So we've measured it, we're just going to keep building up a little bit of the thickness just to sort of try and get it as close as we physically possibly can to the other side. Got a little prime finishing wheel on here. These things are amazing. They really help get rid of a lot of the deeper gouges from the shaping of it, so we can start to refine a little bit more. And as you can see, we've got it really close, and aesthetically you can sort of see it matches and it actually works when we got it in the bike. So now what we're going to do here, we've got a prime wheel on our bench grinder. We're just going to start cleaning up some of the nicks and cuts and scratches and damage over the years that these clamps have both had. Could change it over to a fine cleaning wheel just to sort of really polish them out before we get into the hydroblasting stage of this clamp restoration. So here we are in our Raptor blaster. we've all seen hydroblasting, or a lot of us have, so we're just not going to focus too much on it. So this is a top clamp in here. We have a two-stage hydroblasting process that helps give us the shine. So we just sort of fire through methodically with the cleaning process of that. And as you can see, as always, it brings them, it just transforms them. Hydroblasting is a magic process, and it's a really wonderful finish. And here we are, we've got our all balls kit that we're going to be pressing into this lower stem. And their kits are fantastic. You know, we've spoken about aftermarket OEM before, so it all has its place. Freshly zinc plated fastening nuts and adjusters, which we do in-house, which zinc plating is always gives another great process and another key visual element to it as well. All right, guys, so we've popped the new racers into this head stem here. We've been using an all balls kit on this one. There's a lot of different aftermarket kits out there that you can use for bearings, spacers, all that sort of stuff. We generally use the all balls stuff, sometimes the Pro X stuff. If a customer specifically wants OEM, we can use that. Other than that, the aftermarket stuff is of a high quality. So we've punched the racers into this frame. They're seated in their nice home. So what we're going to do now is we've got our lower clamp, which we've assembled the bearing and the stem on, which you saw just before. So now we're going to put a fair bit of grease on the bottom of this bearing so it stays nice and lubricated. We're going to use a waterproof grease because it is a harsh area, regardless of whether the bike's going to be ridden or not. And then what we're going to do is we're going to install the clamp in, pop the top bearing in, top clamp, and then adjust it up, and then we'll be able to get those pretty looking forks in. All right, guys, we've got our freshly greased bearing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to offer it into the bottom part of the stem. As you can see, it'll just sit in there quite nicely. We've got the top bearing here, which will locate the stem centrally. And we can see that our freshly repaired steering stops sit exactly where they need to, which is always a bonus. So we've got a rag with this because it can be a little bit messy. We don't like getting grease all over the place. So what we're going to do now, we've got the top dust cap for the top bearing. I'm going to pop that on there, which sits and recesses quite nicely in the frame. Now we've got the adjuster nut. As you can see, it's a unique looking nut. It looks like a very small shock perch adjuster. So what we're going to do, we're just going to screw that on. There's a tiny little bit of grease on the thread just to help it go on nicely. And that is actually going to be the preload adjustment on the bearings and the stem in here. So you'll be able to tell how much preload you've got. Some guys like a lot of preload, some guys like a little bit of preload. It depends on what you want to feel in your bars and how much resistance you want. We're going to set this fairly neutrally. We're not going to go too crazy on it because this bike isn't going to see a lot of seat time. It's going to be more about the restoration side of it than it is about those sorts of ergonomics. So what we're going to do, be 2 seconds, we're going to grab a little adjuster and we're just going to adjust this tight, make sure the bearings are home, then we're going to back it off a little bit and then just nip it up. All right, guys, we've got the top clamp here that we're going to put on. We've adjusted these bearings up. We have freshly zinc plated top nut and washer. So that'll just literally sit over the top of the adjuster nut. Your washer goes on next, and then the locking nut, which will hold the top clamp in place. Now, this is the nut that you will put a fair bit of torque into once you're finally happy and it is all set up. So as you can see, that sort of that'll lock that together. Now we'll pop the pinch bolts in, our fresh zinc pinch bolts, and then we'll be able to install these lovely forks and be able to see it all the front end in and looking amazing. This thing's going to be a really nice looking bike when we're done. All right, guys, so now we've got the pinch bolts in there. We've got these beautifully restored forks. We've gone with the Kashima replica anodizing on the upper tubes, which always looks amazing and is a really nice little touch to a bike like this. It adds a little bit of flair. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put both these forks into the triple clamps. As you can see, you really just want to be mindful that you're not scratching anything. Anything's bound up or doesn't really want to go in, always be cautious not to force anything. have a look, orientate them nicely so your bleed screws are okay. And then what we'll do is we'll just slowly tighten these up so they're held in place. And then we can go through and torque them up once we've got both tubes in there. You can already see the colors that are starting to come through and the matching that's going on with the white frame, the really nice upper tubes, the gold zinc and the hydroblasted clamps. It's really something that just looks really special. So what we're going to do is we're going to put both these forks in here, then that'll be the front end in and done, which will be really nice.